You're watching The Ready Writer, a show where I get to speak to writers of all different genres, mediums, and experiences. The Ready Writer. Are you ready? Welcome to another episode of The Ready Writer. I am your host, Casey Bell, and I'd like to thank you for joining us. Today's guest is Megan Brame. Let's get the show started. All right, so you are an author of a book. Um, was becoming an author ever something you ever aspired, or was this something that just kind of happened because you felt like you needed to write a book?
Oh, I guess both. Day one was created because it was in my head and I couldn't move forward with anything else until I got this thing out of my head. And I knew all of these steps to creating a business that would be a successful business. And I saw throughout that space, the entrepreneurial space, that there was a lot of books out there that was sort of high level philosophy and very vague. And so I wanted to create something that was actionable and something that I thought was missing from that space. And so that's why I wrote Day One. So it was sort of both, where I needed to write it because it was in my head and I couldn't focus on anything else until I got it out of my head. I said it was sort of like a dam. It was just stopping me from doing anything else until I got this out in the world. And I don't think that it was something that was a big plan for me. Like when I started my business, it just sort of came organically.
And did it come natural for you to sit and finally write it? Because it sounds like there's a lot of people who have books in them, but they make excuses as to why they're not writing it. But it seems like you couldn't sleep, you couldn't eat, there was nothing you could do until you actually wrote it. So, how when you finally sat down to do it, was the process somewhat easy or was it difficult?
It was so difficult. It was so difficult because in addition to it, I'm still running a business and I have all of these things. I have customers I have to take care of and I have marketing I have to do. I still have to run this business. And so it became just this, it started out as kind of fun, I guess, and kind of the honeymoon phase of it, but the more that I went along, the more I realized like this has to be a balancing act because not only I need this to get out, but I also need to keep going with my daily life. And so it wasn't easy. It became a chore, but it was definitely a chore that was still exciting in a way. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm. Yes. So once it was done, you were done writing it and you now had to publish it. How did you go into publishing it, and did you get help or did you have to just research? Because I mean, today it's kind of easy publishing because there's so many YouTube channels of published authors giving you information. But
Yeah.
back in the day, there really was no how to. There was books and everything, but there still was nothing that really gave you that step by step. So, how did you even know where to publish, how to publish, and all those things?
Luckily, just from blogging and from being a marketing strategist, I knew about these ins and outs, and I had contacts with a publisher, but it just didn't work out the way that I wanted it to. And so I decided to self publish it. And it was, again, more about me just like, I have to get this out into the world so that I can check that off my list and move on and stop using it as an excuse to uh, just stop using it as an excuse, I guess. But that doesn't mean that I don't love my book and that I'm not proud of it. I'm very proud of it. And it's helped a lot of people. It was just this thing that I felt was going to be, it needed to be the stepping stone that I accomplished. And so going the traditional route of finding an agent and getting a publisher, like a traditional publisher, that seemed enticing, but only for an ego thing, not for a practical thing. And so that's why I was like, what am I really in this for? And I don't say that to be any sort of like, guru or something like that. It was just more like, uh, look, I want to get this message out. Do I want to dilute the process or do I just want to get this message out? And so that's why I decided to go with self publishing.
And how did you originally hear about self publishing? How did that first?
Oh, wow. Um, I can't say. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I just learned about it as I went along. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's not a good answer, but I couldn't tell you. It was just it was out in the ether back then, and I was like, okay, well, let me figure out how to do this.
And so the book is called The Practical Guide to Launching Your New Business. Of course, don't give it all away, but what is some things readers can look forward to in reading this?
So what I do in day one is I take you through the journey of creating a business, from figuring out your idea to, we touch base on the different types of business you can run, a sole prop versus an LLC and things like that. But I also talk about how to navigate what happens when you have people who doubt your abilities, or when you have your own inner doubts, and how to tackle that. I also talk about the day when I almost lost that 20,000 sample order after I had made everything, and just how you navigate bad days, burnouts. It's my goal in the book to paint a realistic picture of entrepreneurship, not in a way to scare people off, but in a way to say, like, this is how you tackle these things. And if they come up, there are ways to navigate around it. There are ways to stop yourself from um, preventing you from starting your business because of whatever irrational reasons, or if you have naysayers in your family, how can you take that and internalize it in a way that is actionable instead of defensive? And what can you say to those people? And how do you know when your business is a success? How do you know when you're able to launch? And all of those steps. That's what I really tried to do with day one, is to stop the one day I'd love to do this. I want to just stop that right in its tracks and say, it's not about one day, it's about day one.
I like that. It's not about one day, it's about day one. So going way, way back,
Yeah.
I can't even begin to comprehend how you were capable of making 20,000 samples. How many days, weeks, months did it take? And
It,
how come you, at not one point, did you say, at least let me ask a friend to come help?
um, well, it was my full-time job, and everyone else had full-time day jobs. So I couldn't really get people to come help me, but also it was just this personal goal that I had to attack. And it took me all summer. I had planned it strategically so that summer was my downtime back then. It was, people are on vacation, they're not buying soaps and candles. It was just the downtime for me. So that's when I would usually plan out my holiday schedules or things like that. And that was really the time that I was like, okay, I have this goal, this huge goal. How am I going to tackle this? Let me break it down. I had a whiteboard on the back of my studio door that just, like just 19,400 cross off, like 11,000 cross off. And just, yeah, it took me, I would say, if I had a 10-hour day, just for, lack of my math skills, I would say I probably devoted about 6 hours to the samples and then 3 hours to the rest of the business, which, like I said, that was my downtime of year. So it really kind of worked out to my advantage, I guess. If, I looked back on it, I wish I hadn't done it that way, but it is what it is, and it got done.
Amazing. So is this something so you wrote this book? Is there another book in you, or do you consider yourself done, or do you consider yourself maybe sometime in the future, I'll write another book?
there's always there's always shiny objects in my head that are like, wouldn't this be a great book, or I would love to do this. And I do have books in me. I do have books in me. I just don't know what book is the what book is the right book for the right moment, if that makes sense.
Right. Yes. Well, I suggest, because I like what you said, as far as, because I know when you do the webinars, they say do social media, and they're very general, and they're very
Yeah.
they're not specific about it. And so you saying you really shouldn't be on all of them, that's really the first time I've heard that. And so I would definitely suggest writing a book on marketing and um, the best of knowing which platform is best for your business. And as you said, finding ways in your budget to hire someone to do that, because social media can be very not only time consuming and exhausting, but if you get addicted to scrolling, it can become very angering. And um, if you follow people, sometimes they share things that are negative, and it
Mm-hmm.
just brings negative energy, and it can ruin your workday. And so it's definitely not something you want to focus on. And so I
Yeah.
think what you said was great. And I know you have so much more tips that people in business could definitely use. So you can kind of maybe consider writing a book on marketing.
Thank you. That's a good idea.
You're welcome. So I don't know if you, prior to the pandemic, did any book signings or festivals or book expos. Um, no, so but
Mm.
how were you marketing your book prior to the pandemic? And obviously, if you didn't go out, I mean, I guess it didn't matter much, but are you finding unique and different ways? Because it seems like a lot of people are complaining about the pandemic, but it did force us into being creative and
Mm.
finding new ways to do things. And so did you find anything new about marketing your book?
Yeah, I think I took marketing my book to think about my book as more like a business card than a standalone product. I really wanted the book to be a gateway into into me, I guess, and into the ways that I do business and how I can help other people. So I, when the pandemic struck and when I needed to create hype for the launch of the book, that's how I really strategically decided to use it. And so I gave away free chapters. You can download free chapters now on my website. I gave it out to people. I saw it more as not a money making thing, but more as a validation of who I was as a marketing strategist. And so that's how I used it in my promotion. It was more of a sales funnel piece than a standalone guide, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. So as you being in the business, and have you ever helped anyone start a business, and have you ever seen a mistake people make in business that you would like to share with them? Not only this is a mistake, but why this is a mistake. Because so
Mm.
many people don't understand the why behind things, so they'll just keep doing it even after you tell them this is not something you should do. So I think sometimes if they hear the why behind it, why it's really not helping you in your business, it causes people to stop and think.
I think the biggest thing that I have cautioned people with is to make sure that you are, I wanted to say validating your idea, but also to make sure that you are in business for a good reason. And the only reason I bring that up is because I think a lot of people will go into business as a vanity project, as a way to say, I'm an entrepreneur and like the MLM businesses come to mind with that kind of thing of just, like, I'm just going to throw the $300 or whatever to start my essential oils business. And that's fine. But why are you in this? I mean, I know we're all in this to make money, but when you're not making money, you're gonna need something that keeps you going. And so if this is just a vanity project for you, it's going to be really hard to keep that going on the really bad days. So when you're able to see uh, the thing that is compelling you to move forward, maybe it's that you want a better life for your family, or that you are terrible at office life like I was, or something in the middle of that. That's the thing that keeps your drive going. And if you don't have that, it's going to be really tough to keep your business afloat.
Cool. And so my last question for today, and it's similar to the other one from the last show. If there's an author out there, dead or alive, who has inspired you, you read their book or more than one of their books, and you're like, oh my goodness, this person is amazing. Their writing is amazing. Who would this person be you would like to meet?
Tim Ferriss, The 4 Hour Work Week. I read it right out of college when I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I think that it's become kind of controversial now, but to me, it was such an eye-opening thing when I was in this tumultuous age of realizing that my time has worth and that it is better for you to be able to bring people in and value your time. And I say this because in theory it was a good idea, but I was terrible at practicing it at the beginning. Um, just learning how to run a business without being the business, if that makes sense.
That is all the time we have for you today on this episode of The Ready Writer. I'd like to thank our guest, Megan Brame, for stopping on by and sharing her insight. And you, the audience, thank you for taking the time to watch. Have yourself a great day. Have a great week.